All right. Welcome to the Movie Men's Chat. We are joined here with myself, Bo, my brother Drew, a good friend Justin, Old Faithful, I like to call him, and in-house we've got Chase right here in the flesh. He's real. He's real.
I made
He's
it.
not just a code on my screen somewhere. My brother Chase right here in the flesh. So this is a
Flew across
special
the country just for this.
This is a special episode. We've got Chase in person, so we'll be sharing this screen. And it will be the four of us discussing this because, well, for reasons we don't have to mention here. There's a little bit of a mess up on the scheduling. My fault. And as a result, I will be announcing my perfect movie nomination at the end of this call instead of Alan, and we'll do Alan on the next one. So we're a little bit out of order, but everything should... oh my gosh, Callum. We weren't expecting Callum. Callum, you just showed up. Awesome. Sweet. All right. So there's five of us now. Here.
Sorry, guys. I was just taking a moment to compose myself after Joe Biden's speech. That's why I'm late.
We're recording. We're live, by the way. We just started. So
I'll keep politics out of it then.
Yeah. We are politic neutral, except we're not, except when we're not. Except when Callum speaks.
It's not even American.
I know. Callum's more involved in American politics than the rest of us Americans are. All right. Welcome, Callum. That's awesome. I'm so glad you made it, dude. All right. So, as we know, we're doing a perfect movie deep dive. And part of this process, if anybody hasn't seen our previous video, is that we are going through, each of us, we're going to nominate one movie that we think is perfect. And unfortunately, the set of criteria that we've deemed that makes a movie perfect is with Alan, and he didn't share it with us. So we're going to have to go off memory and instinct, which I think is actually a more accurate way to judge a movie's perfection than like a list of, do's and don'ts. Exactly. So hopefully this works out. But happy to have you here, Callum. And I'm going to just turn the time over to Justin. I want Justin, so he nominated on our last call when we just decided that we would do a perfect movie deep dive, where essentially we would each throw out a movie to be nominated that we think is perfect, just as a movie, not perfect in terms of flawless, in terms of movie mistakes, those types of things, but just like the cinematic experience. Was it perfect? And Justin was the first, and he nominated First Night a couple weeks ago, which we have all watched and we are ready to discuss. But I'm going to kick it to Justin so that he can explain to us, make the case, Justin, why you think that First Night is a perfect movie.
All right. Thanks for enduring that 1995 nostalgia. And I want to say that almost all of us were born by 1995, right, Callum? Yeah.
January of 95. I remember it when it came out.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, Return of the Jedi, 83. That's exactly when I was. Okay. So, in my estimation, this is the most controversial movie I could pick from my list because it had the lowest IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, audience score lists. So I really wanted to find one that we really had to dig deep into. Not that the movie has to be, it speaks for itself. It is a period piece. It was back when movie set pieces were all real, right? We didn't have the CG era yet. This is the time when, I don't know if you can see it, but it has the Star Trek costume feel of the diagonal across the chest, kind of little bit form-fitting, a little bit more modern. This was 95, guys. This was like the cutting edge where they're trying to use CG a little bit. Like you had a little bit in Willow in 87, 89, somewhere in there. They're trying to do a little bit, but for the most part, John Box built these sets, big, huge set pieces. So big, in fact, that they fired him because he was spending too much money. So my criteria for this movie is a great bad guy. The wardrobe, I said modernized, but I think for the timepiece and for a classic piece, It fits the test of time. The production design of the sets are real. They were still worried about lighting, and John Box was talking about how when he built these sets, he had to know where the sun was rising, the sun was setting, so they would have good light for most of the day, and where it would shine, and all those things, the things that we used to think about in movies. The music is fascinating because as far as Jerry Goldsmith was last minute chosen, he had 1 month of prep and 2 to 3 days of in-studio recording is all he had. A month and then 3 days recording. And he did a bang-up job, one of like his best. And he's been a composer and conductor of hundreds of movies. I was amazed at how many movies we've seen that he was a composer for The Mummy and like a bunch of other ones. Just look it up. So you have that aspect. So the music, I was especially looking for that because that was mentioned as a perfect movie. The timelessness of this, I would cite because it was a more modern take. In 1995 is not modern anymore, but at that time, you can watch this 20 years from now. You could watch this in 95, and you can watch this 100 years from now, and it's still allegory, and it's still relevant to any society that we have in the future and the past. It's timeless. And then 2 more things I'll say is it is not supposed to be historically accurate, but it is accurate to history as far as the mythology goes. Guinevere did fall in love with Arthur first, and then Lancelot fell in love, and they had a secret tryst, and it was discovered, and they went to war over it. And it was a lot more actually worse in the story than in this movie. And so I also really like the fact that they went out of their way in this movie to have no sex and not gratuitous violence. That was actually part of their appeal, is to be I mean, the worst thing that happens in this movie is a kiss. And that was done on purpose. And it was done so well that all 3 actors, it was meant to be a bunch of days of shooting, like we got to get this scene right because it's the turning point of the movie. It was done in 1 take. They took the first take and they're like, hey, we need it. Like, it was perfect. So the last thing I'll say is this: how timeless is the end scene with King Arthur? And we'll get into it later on, but when his ultimatum is, bow to me or die, and he says, fight, fight, fight. And we had a real life example. Thank you, Callum. A week and a half ago, where a certain political figure was shot in the air and got up and said, fight, fight, fight. I thought, how timeless is this story? Who in his past, Trump has had some, less than savory things. And I don't mean to get into his life, but you have an unsavory character who has flaws. And here's the line, and the final thought I have to make this my argument: this is a perfect movie. He says, I cannot love men in pieces. I have to take the whole. I'm maybe misquoting it, but you have to love this entire movie. You can't just love pieces. And so now I give it to you. I guess we'll start with Drew. Go ahead.
Boys, when I tell you I haven't had this much fun rewatching a movie in so long, I was knee slapping myself, just grinning ear to ear, rewatching this. I was having so much fun. I turned it on, and as soon as the opening credits happened, I just started rattling off things in my head that made me so happy about this movie. I'm like, is there a more memorable character a more memorable, like G class character. You got A, B, C, D, all the way, than Jacob. Does he just cement himself into your brain, and you can mention it anytime, anywhere, and everybody would be like, Jacob, you mean Maid Marian's trusty advisor, Jacob? Yes, that Jacob. And I was having so much fun. I wrote down, I was like, this is just quintessential nostalgia for me. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, with it being a perfect movie, because it was so nostalgic and it just bubbled up all sorts of genuinely happy feelings that just took me right back to my childhood. All of the quotes that we had, the first one that really kicked me, where I like it threw me back into our childhood, was it was like, go on, Mark, but don't hurt him. How many times did we say that as kids when we would pick up toy swords and we would go on, Mark, just don't hurt him? Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. I was having so much fun just like mouthing the words to the whole movie.
Hey, Drew, real quick, while we're on the topic of great quotes from this movie, can you just do the one that I've literally heard you do more than any other? And that is when he's cutting the meat with his knife. Give us that quote. Come on, let's hear it.
I mean, anybody who's seen this movie and was over the age of 6 has quoted that part more times than I would put it in at the top 20 most quoted scenes in all of cinema. And that's give me a chance to finish my food. And I don't know why he enunciates so well.
It's so funny. Ever since you became a dad, every time one of your kids like bugs you and you're in the middle of you will say that to him. You're like,
I use that quote.
Finish my food.
I use that quote weekly, and I haven't seen this movie in at least 15 years. And so just rewatching it, I had so much fun doing it, and the quotes, and also I would like to put it up for the most aggressive kiss we've ever seen on the big screen. When she asks him to kiss him and he walks up, it punched me back into my seat. I was like, wow, Lancelot, they clicked teeth, they were doing this. And so anyways, that and then Sean Connery is just a staple of our childhood. Everything he says is quotable. Everything he says, especially and particularly in this movie, is requotable, and you can use it in your own life and use it to become a better person. Thank you, Sean Connery. And I guess the most used quote we have is from Dragonheart. Look to the stars, Owen. Look to the stars. And you get a little piece of him. You get a little piece of him in anything you do. Everything he says is quotable, and it rolls off your tongue. It feels so good in your mouth whenever you're trying to requote Sean Connery. I know Callum's gonna sit over there and he's like, well, dude, this is how we feel all the time. And I know, but for us Americans, us trying to do Sean Connery accent, that's as close as we get to godhood, And so that's just, I imagine the language of the gods will be in Sean Connery's voice. All of us will be speaking that because it's incredible. Anyways, I just wanted to start first because I was so excited about this movie. And Justin, I want to thank you for doing this movie. And I 100% think that it's a perfect movie. Here's my 2 qualms, if I may. One, the Gauntlet.
No qualms. Sorry. Cut them off.
Hold on, because they're not even that big of a deal. The Gauntlet was a lot scarier when I was a kid. I remember it being a bigger deal when I was a kid. It was this. I was like revving up. I was like, oh, here comes Lancelot. Hey, you have to put on padding first. and he wasn't doing it. What a stud! But then I was like, oh well, I mean, it's like styrofoam balls, and I mean the blades were tiny. Anyways, that piece of the movie didn't hold up. Another thing that I was gonna say is like, not only with the character Jacob, this movie, again, this might be nostalgia speaking, and I'm pretty sure it is, but it has such memorable second, third, fourth, fifth nary characters, like Miriam's, and the costumes. Justin, you already mentioned it, but the costumes were so memorable and so timeless. Anybody who's seen that movie, you don't have to ever watch that movie. Even if you never watch that movie again, if you saw the costumes, you would immediately know what movie they were from. Even Maid Marian's like godfather, I think he is, like the old man that has like the
Guinevere, Drew. Guinevere.
What am I saying? Maid Marian. Oh, I'm sorry. I've got Robin Hood on the brain.
Keep going.
Guinevere, excuse me. Guinevere's godfather, like the old man in like the textured robe. And I know, you guys know I have a thing about textures. All I want to do is touch that man's robe. Like, it is so textured and white and pure. I was like, it's so memorable. As soon as I saw it, it sent me back to 1998, probably, when we were watching it weekly.
Okay.
Anyways, I can't remember my second qualm with it. It wasn't that big of a deal, but
Drew, this is too much. Listen, Justin had his thing of why it's perfect, and you just went on a huge rant of all the things that you loved. We need some negativity here. I'm gonna pass the ball to Callum. He's gonna bring us down like he always does.
Hey,
and let's hash it out.
Hey, Callum, with this one, go ahead. Good luck. The time is yours, sir.
Oh, this is really difficult because my loyalty is to Sean Connery. Look at what I'm wearing tonight. Rangers Football Club. He was a Rangers Football Club fan, my fellow countryman. Something that Sean Connery once said. Drew, can you actually say this for me in a Sean Connery voice? Say, if you come to Glasgow, I will show you the city sights. Wait, unmute yourself.
I know, I was practicing.
Okay.
Say it again, really quick.
If you come to Glasgow, I'll show you the city sights.
If you come to Glasgow, I'll show you the city lights. Is that right? Something like that?
If you come to Glasgow, I'll show you the city sights.
The city shites. Shites.
If you come to Glasgow, I'll show you the shitty shites.
Trying here.
Wait. I have one for Drew before Callum continues. Drew, do this Sean Connery quote. When Barbara Walters asks him if he hits women, he says, sometimes they need a smack in the face.
Sometimes they need a smack in the face.
Yes, dude, that's my favorite Sean Connery quote. There you go. All right, sorry,
that was
Callum.
excellent. Yeah, I love Sean Connery. What a legend. Okay, I was thinking, no, but if there's a lot of pros, then sometimes it would be good to point out some of the negatives. I had mostly positives as well. One of the things that this was my first time maybe I didn't see it when I was a little boy, but this is my first time that I have full memory of actually watching this movie. Blown away by the age gap. That was like, I was expecting it to be his son or something like that she was about to hook up with, but it was him, you know. So that in today's age is a little bit mind blowing. But then I also picked up on the gauntlet, and I was thinking about, like, why does this seem silly? And I think it's because the only reason why that doesn't hold up as well is because at the time of them making that gauntlet, they had no idea that they were going to be inspiring American Ninja Warrior and it would actually become a legit thing, you know? Because we see American Ninja Warrior and we think, oh wow, this is, you know, it's a little bit higher and elevated. That's basically all it was. But as you said, Drew, when you watched it, it was a huge deal for you when you were a wee boy. So yeah, that like that's where you give it some grace. You know, we're talking about watching it in its context, watching it in the context of '95. You got to give it the grace of '95, and in '95 that was an impressive feat of skill and strength shown by Lancelot. The main thing I wanted to say, though, was a positive on the movie. I thought the depth of the character of Lancelot was amazing. Like, you know, a lot of times with these movies, unless you get the backstory of a character, it's difficult to feel a tie to him, as though you care for the character. With Lancelot, you didn't find out his traumatic childhood until like, what was it, like halfway or 3/4 of the way through the movie. And then, so even though it was delayed that much, it didn't take that long before you cared about Lancelot. And the whole time you were maybe asking about it, it posed the question of the purpose of life, because Lancelot had no purpose, and that was almost what he was able to give him what he thought was the freedom to be able to face these dangerous situations without a care in the world. But then he was elevated as a man, as a warrior, as a man and as a warrior. And in his trade, he was elevated in all aspects of his life once he found what that purpose was. Which, you know, it's funny because it's that, Justin, you mentioned when we spoke a couple of weeks ago about the what did you call it, the girlfriend factor or something like that, where it's a kind of movie where could you sit down and watch it with your girlfriend? Like, this is a movie that men would love, but it's also a movie. It's got the romance. It's got the love story behind it. You know, that would draw in the ladies, and it also is like it makes a man feel more almost like masculine, like the masculine role of what it means to be a man is to find yourself, the lady that you would want to become your queen, and to take care of her and to go after her and completely put yourself in dangerous and perilous situations without even having any thought of the danger you're about to go in. But it doesn't matter because you're willing to sacrifice everything, not because of the lack of purpose in your life, but because of the new purpose in your life, which is the love of your queen. My wife's getting excited as I'm sitting. Didn't you get any ideas? You just keep on cleaning up as I'm talking.
I wanted to roll with that. One of the production designs was to make Camelot masculine and Lyonesse feminine. And the curves of the buildings and the tapestry, if you look in Camelot, it's a lot of more like metal and blue, and then you have rounded, more ergonomic, and it was on purpose that you feel that. And I think that's what we're missing in today's, you know, one of the pinpoint things of movies today suck is because they forgot there's two roles, two genders. Oops.
There goes monetization on YouTube.
Chase, let's have you take the reins. What were your thoughts? Perfect or not?
Yeah, so I would say the issues that I have. Oh,
Wait, Chase, before you go, really quick, I just wanted to ask, I want to hear what your favorite quote or most used quote, minus the "give me a chance to finish my food," from that movie. Really quick, do you have one off the top of your head?
I was gonna say the "give me a chance to finish my food" because it's so applicable. But yeah, I think the other one is don't hurt him, right? With that little sword fight at the beginning.
How about this one? Again.
The other one that we used constantly was pretty.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I was hoping one of you would say that. Sorry, Case, go ahead.
So I would say I had very few problems with the movie. Again, it was kind of, as Drew said, it was pretty minor stuff. There was the age gap, right? And when Stacy and I were watching it, we kind of brought that up, where it's like that's a big age gap. And you go, okay, but in medieval times, that's kind of how things would actually go. But then I go, if it's trying to be historically accurate, you also want to have Guinevere running a city because females weren't in charge. So,
and if any of the YouTube overlords missed what Justin just said, that one just got us demonetized. So thanks, Chase. Continue.
historically, that's 1300s Britain, whatever. Take it up with them. But yeah, so there was that, and then a super fun movie. Tons of requotes. I mean, that the oath that they swear, and honestly, of all of the movies that I've seen of a King Arthur, I think the only one that kind of comes close to being a comparable to Sean Connery's King Arthur is the Arthur Legend of the Sword. It was done in 2017 with Charlie Hunnam as a young Arthur, kind of finding his way. But yeah, Sean Connery as King Arthur was just iconic. Like, is there a more regal person than Sean Connery? So I think they just nailed the casting. And then additionally, I have a lot of problem with Richard Gere. I struggle watching some of his movies because a lot of his movies, it doesn't feel like he's actually acting. It's just kind of he's in a movie. But this one, right, where he's Lancelot, he nailed it. He put on the part. He did it. He acted the best that I've seen Richard Gere act. And so, yeah, I really liked it. And then rewatching it again, it brought back all the nostalgia from being a kid and having Dad make us wooden swords, and we just go to town at each other. And yeah, knuckles, hands.
That was a rule in the Darlington house with us brothers. It was like, no finger hitting. I was like,
intentionally.
Yeah, no intentional finger hitting, as if we knew if it was intentional or not. But that was a rule we had.
But yeah, I mean, it inspired so much of our childhood, that its impact was heavy. It's requotable, has tons of nostalgia. It's rewatchable. The battle scenes are incredible, right? The flaming archer arrows, like, I know it had been done before. I mean, the flaming arrows, but as a kid, like, that was my first exposure to it, and it was such an incredible thing where they're lighting their arrows on fire and shooting them off. Anyways, it was such a good movie. So again, there's a little nitpicky stuff. Every movie has a little nitpicky stuff. So not every movie. Most movies have nitpicky stuff, especially the perfect movies. It's hard to find a perfect that's also perfect. So,
all right, Drew and Callum, hang on to your negativity because I'm going to kick this off. This has been way too positive for my liking. And let me just preface this by saying that I love this movie. Okay. As you heard from my brothers, we grew up watching it. We requoted it. Every single time the credits would run, we'd pick up our wooden swords and pretend like we were knights of the Round Table. It was really fun, and it was like a pivotal part of my childhood. And I love this movie and always will till the day I die. What I want to focus on is the difference between a really good movie and a perfect movie. I think when I introduced the idea of a perfect movie a couple of years ago on Marco Polo, I'm going to call you out, Justin. I feel like, Justin, you took that and ran with it, and you thought, any movie that I like, let's label it as perfect. Now, fight me on that, and I'm here to pick a fight, by the way. But I feel like you are way looser on your standards of perfection than I am. And here's what I mean by that. The 90s is chock full of excellent movies. You've got First Night. I mean, this in my mind, this First Night is in the same category as like Dragonheart, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Gone in 60 Seconds. Like, they're solid, like The Fugitive. There are solid movies that were coming out in the 90s, and they were just rapid fire, like really good movies. But are they perfect? By my standard, they are not. Even like Waterworld was really fun, and I'll get grief from that. But I know that like critically it got really, but it's a fun movie, you know. But these movies that just had really strong plots, great actors, like I feel like in the 90s we were cranking through them, and they were like really fun movies. But were they life-changing? Were they iconic? Did they like rattle me to my core? And like, will I hang my reputation as a movieman on the perfection of First Night, I don't think I can do that. And here are a couple of reasons why, and I'll make this really quick. Me personally, I love this movie. Like I said, I can't say that enough, but seeing it through, I'm with Drew. I haven't seen this movie probably in 15, 20 years. So it's been a while. So it was interesting to see it through the lens of the way in which I watch movies now versus when I watched movies as a kid or as a teenager, where it really was just for cheap thrills. As an adult, I watch movies, I've said this before, to feel something. Didn't make me feel deeply. Was it convincing? Was it essentially life-changing? And not every movie has to be, but to be perfect, I think it does. And unfortunately, I watched this movie with my wife, who's a Gen Zer, didn't grow up watching it. And I've realized that can ruin movies sometimes because she just kept looking at me and being like, this is cheesy. I'm like, it is not cheesy. It's beautiful and it's fun. But some of the romance scenes, like when every single time Lancelot and Guinevere were on screen together, the music would start that love ballad. And it was because my wife was sitting next to me, pointing it out to me, it was obnoxious. Every single time, the same love ballad. It's like, cue the music. Oh, Guinevere and Lancelot are on the screen together. Cue the music. Same music. Just cue it up. And it was like pretty obnoxious. And you guys just praised Richard Gere for his performance. That was probably my biggest knock on the movie. The dude talked like an American New Yorker the entire time. He didn't even try to throw on an accent. He didn't even try to act medieval. He was literally a modern day American dressed up as a medieval person sword fighting. I feel like he phoned it in. I don't think Richard Gere tried in this movie. In my opinion, Richard Gere's best performance is in Pretty Woman. And maybe that's because, I don't remember if it was Chase or Drew that was saying that like Richard Gere is just kind of himself in other movies. So it was nice to see a change of pace here. I disagree. I feel like Richard Gere is his best when he's himself. When he tries to put himself in a long-haired wig and in tights in a medieval epic, but then doesn't try to act medieval, that really like didn't fit with the theme of the movie. The tone of the movie was off as a result of that. And then her, like, their lingering looks together, her, again, like that whole scene, it really was like, it comes across in 2024, it comes across as cheesy. And I know that that's a no-no because we need to look at these movies through the lens of when they were made. I get that. But because I had a Gen Z wife sitting next to me who was pointing out how cheesy it was, it couldn't be ignored. And viewing it through the adult lens that I see movies now, I was like, it's a great movie, but it didn't like bring me to tears. It didn't like pull on my heartstring. There were some great quotes from King Arthur, but other than that, it was just a good movie. I don't think it was perfect though. So there we go. There are some of my qualms. I'm voting no. It is not perfect. It's good, but it's not perfect. All right, Drew, your second qualm, and then Callum, you got some.
All right. Well, I'm gonna rebut the last thing that you just said really quick before I get to my qualm, which is Tom Cruise also didn't even try a German accent in Valkyrie, but that didn't make it any lesser of a performance. It didn't make it it didn't pull me away from it. It just made me think, oh, that's because they're speaking German. They're Germans, and he's just acting. He's just
let me counter that right now. First of all, it started the movie with him speaking in German, and then it fades into his voice. And so it is implied intelligence that he's speaking in German throughout the rest of the movie. And if you're going to knock him, then you got to literally knock every single other actor in that movie who were playing Germans with English accents. So no, that one doesn't fly. Try again.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is just because their accents were off doesn't make it a bad movie. Yes,
it does, because your whole point is their accents were off in Valkyrie. My whole point is they explained that at the beginning, so it wouldn't be a problem. They did no such thing with First Night or with Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Actually, they did because he's an
accents.
Yeah, everybody else in the movie had the proper accents.
It's like
but everybody else had a mother and father that didn't burn in a fire to teach him the right way to say things wrong.
He's a nomad.
Well, that's a non-argument. So thank you for conceding on this one. Continue.
Negative.
He's a nomad. He doesn't sit around.
He makes his own rules.
Drinking tea and crumpets with all the other Englishmen. He's a man of his own. He's a man of the sword. He's a man of his own doing. That's a silly qualm in my book to pull it away from that.
You can't tell me that watching Richard Gere in that movie, you don't think he phoned it in. He didn't even try. At least in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, he had to re-record because he tried first and people hated it. And so Kevin Costner had to re-record an American accent because people hated it so much. Richard Gere didn't even try. He walked onto that set with a smile on his face and he said, "Put the wig on, put me in clothes, and let's like get this paycheck." That's the way I felt.
No, the way that he would like, I felt it. I felt it with him and Guinevere when they would look at each other and he'd give those Richard Gere squinty eyes and like that smirk. I was like, ooh, I'm falling in love with Lancelot.
Yeah,
And-
because Richard Gere only does rom-coms.
Like not first night because he was in an action.
Right.
So
But yeah,
Andy only does squinty eyes.
Yeah, he can do the romance because that's what he does. That's all he does is romantic movies.
and
So
guess
of course
what?
he's going to nail the romance part.
It worked
Everything else.
in first night. He knocked it out of the park with it.
No. Even the parts where he's like doing flashbacks or he's doing the feel bad for me scenes, it still came across as so ingenuine. Like he's like looking up with like his like eyebrows. Like it really did come across as cheesy. He wasn't. I feel like he wasn't trying very hard.
I mean, he probably tried as hard as he can. He just is a terrible actor.
Couldn't summon the emotions.
I don't know, because I was paying attention, and when he like when and maybe this is more credit to like his supporting actors like the other Knights and Sean Connery. But for example, the scene when in Guinevere's Lioness, when they were stuck and he has the flashback and then he goes, "No," and he goes and like does it. You can see the urgency. So that one, like, I felt like I was like, "Oh, it's a little cheesy" when he said it, but the supporting actors really pulled through for him there. And when they like they didn't react to him saying no, they reacted to how they would react to the real character saying no, and they were like on it, and that made up for it in my book, because I was like, I did the same thing. I was like, "Ooh, that's a little." Like you could have tried a little harder. Let's do 4 or 5 more takes of that to get it right instead of just taking the first one. But like I said, the supporting actors, they came in and I was like, okay, save the scene.
No, you're right. You're right. And I appreciate your honesty in saying that scene was a little like his no was cheesy, because that was another point that had me rolling my eyes. I'm like, I'm so sorry, Natalie. Like she does not like movies like that. That's like overly dramatic or cheesy. But you're right. The supporting actors, but that's another problem I had is how quickly, and again, these are nitpicky. The movie's good. I can't say that enough. But these nitpicky things that that diminish its perfection, in my opinion. So he was called to be a Knight of the Round Table. You don't know what his intentions are. You think it's just to get in the good graces of Guinevere. Like all of that's really good. All the nuances is really good. A problem I had with that story arc, though, is, they're like, can we trust him? He fights for money. Like at first there's that distrust. So they build that plot line really well, in my opinion. But all it takes is one battle. Lancelot kicks a bunch of ass. He's better than all the other knights. And so then they like hand him his sword and give him the nod. Like they respect him. All good. I love all of that. My problem is the very next day when they go to whatever that city was called. Lyonesse, thank you. The next day, and he sees, and he does the no scene. Why is Lancelot now the head knight? What, because he had one good battle? Like all of a sudden now they all bow to him. Now he's like the first knight because he fought good once and they still don't know where his loyalty lies. I had a little problem with that. Like overnight, all the other knights are like now like he's going to go get that church door. Let's follow, guys. Come on. He's our leader. It was just too soon. I feel like they needed to build up to that a little bit more before I would believe that these knights that have been knights for, well over a decade, I assume, King Arthur's most trusted men, all of a sudden he slingshots himself to the top because he has one good fight.
That was exactly my grievance with it. That was the one that I wanted to bring up. I felt as though they could have done a better job of because the whole purpose of the round table is that nobody is at the head of the table. Wait, and did you notice remember when they were going to protect the
Lyonesse?
Aye, they were going to protect Lyonesse, and then the knight was like, we'll set for camp, and then Arthur was like, okay, set the tents over there, and he says, but King, they will see us or whatever, and then he just looks at him, and that was it. Like throughout the whole dynamic of the knights, Lancelot and the King, it felt as though it was definitely like there was no round table involved in this at all. There was no one at the head of the table. Whereas the dynamic of the movie, totally like there was the only part that showed the round table was the literal round table. There was no respect. I felt as though amongst there wasn't enough dialogue maybe about knights saying, "Oh, I'm still not comfortable with this. I still don't trust this guy. I think we could have done more with that." So that was exactly the grievance that I wanted to bring up. So yeah,
It happened. Yeah, that happened twice, and which I noticed. The first was when he was like, "We're bringing Lancelot in," and then the guy was like, "He fights for money," and then King Arthur was like, "It's been shed. It's been done," or whatever he said, and so like, I kind of was like, well, I mean, he is the king, so maybe he has final say, but he does give an open forum to it, and he couldn't just say to the other knight, "Well, we're gonna be down on the grass to let they come out and fight us, and then we'll ambush them from the trees." He couldn't just say that. Who knows who's listening back then, you know? Speaking of like it made the romantic music every time they were in the scene together. Anytime Malagant was, or like it shifted to the bad guys, there were crows crowing. I don't know if anybody noticed this. Every time there was like crows, and I was like, "Oh, I know a crow sound means this is bad." And then I was like, "What a kind of a cheap trick to throw in there." And I don't know if that's just like a '90s thing, but when you go back and rewatch it, just listen. Anytime that it's a Malagant scene, there's crows cawing, and there's no crows in the sky. And so I don't know what that was all about. Kind of threw me off. And then the second.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yes, really quick. The second one, because as I was thinking about, is this a perfect movie? Does it check all the boxes or most of the boxes, like we discussed a couple weeks ago? I went upstairs just grinning ear to ear, and my wife was like, "How was it?" And I was like, "That's such a fun movie. I forget how much I love that movie. It is so great. Yeah, it has some problems here and there, but like overall, beautiful movie. I love it." And she was like, "Oh, I want to watch it." And I was like, I don't know if I could, like, tomorrow. I don't know. Like, there are some long dry parts, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. And then I caught myself, and I was like, "Uh-oh, well, I guess it doesn't hit the like remote dropper or whatever that criteria is, where it's like I could watch that movie, turn around, go eat some dinner, come back, and if it's on TV, I like toss the remote and I'm like, I can watch this again, no problem." It doesn't do that for me, but I don't think it disqualifies it from being a perfect movie. All right, that was my piece.
Justin, what were you going to say?
Oh, I think I forgot now. I'm just gonna get an overall general feel that Bo, you're dead inside, and that you can enjoy good classic movie, okay, for what it is. It was not trying to be so spelling out everything for you. So the regular American accent, didn't think about that one iota until I went on people lambasting this because they didn't like it because of this one thing or that one thing. And it was like, I never even thought of, oh wait, he doesn't have an accent. I was just thinking he's an orphan, and it was giving you 3 different options. Okay, this is how cool this movie is. You want to get into the nitty gritty here. You have Lancelot's, who has no law, no rules, right? And then he has you have Malagant's side, where he's like, men don't want brotherhood, they want leadership. I mean, such a cool line, such a cool bad guy. And then you have King Arthur, who's like, peace, happiness, the strong defend the weak, and there's some kind of peace is only found on the other side of war. And if that day comes, I will fight it. How can you not feel emotion in that? If you don't feel emotion in that, you're dead inside. And if you don't understand, I'm not saying you personally now. I'm just saying there is a lot of, as you call it, what do you call it, Bo, when you don't want the movie to spell it out for you, that you can think for yourself and fill in the
Yeah, it's
pieces.
implied intelligence. Yeah.
Implied intelligence. I had it at the tip of my tongue. The implied intelligence of this movie is that he earned their trust again and again and again. He saved Guinevere. He was the first on the battlefield when when he recognized that they were barricaded in. He was the first one on the scene. I felt, you could imply intelligence that they had multiple battles and they were just cut on the floor of the movie, right? Because they had a 3-hour movie, they had to cut it down to 2. And so you're just getting the essential parts that he earned their trust until the fateful scene where she said, "I owe you this kiss." He was trying to be a good guy the entire time, and he was lulled by Camelot too, and he's like, "I want to be a part of this. I actually found more meaning than just a pretty face." And that's the subtlety, that's the implied intelligence, that yes, they probably had many meetings in that round table, even though you didn't get to see. You saw King Arthur make definitive statements and everybody's like, here, right? But I think there's enough that you can nitpick it, but you can also add your own brain and go, okay, I can make it make sense in my brain, so it's a wash there.
Yeah, and that's fair. I am very acute to implied intelligence. I love it so much, and I don't think this argument is necessarily implied intelligence of like me making an excuse for the problems that I have, and that is another skill, giving movies grace, which we talked about before, which I try to do. I'm just, again, what I wanted to say when you first started talking, Justin, when you're like, you were dead inside. I say again, for the record, I love this movie. It's a good movie. I'm just saying, I don't think we should diminish the status of perfection for movies that we enjoy because we enjoy them. Perfection to me is like the creme de la creme. It's like a high standard. It's like the highest honor that we as movie men can bestow upon a movie. And I want the barrier to entry to be pretty thick. I want it to be like, we don't just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. We want like movies that actually like sink into our soul. Like, a great example, layups are like, Fight Club and Braveheart and Gladiator, Interstellar. Yeah, like movies that are just like inarguably they just knock your socks off every time. Those are perfect movies. These are great movies. Like First Night is a great movie, and I don't want to diminish that. So that being said, I'm sorry. I'm going to say one more thing, and I know
I'm just as you're thinking about this, are you saying that, let's just say for the sake of argument, that a 9 or a 10 out of 10 is a perfect movie?
Yeah, that's great.
And then this is an 8 out of 10 for you?
Right. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah, I really like. It's difficult for me to take the counterpoint on this discussion because I love the movie
and want to give them grace.
Yeah, and I want to give movies grace, but I'm also trying to be honest, and I'm trying to hold the status of perfection as pure as I possibly can without tarnishing it. But that being said, there's a balance because I also don't want it to be an insurmountable obstacle to make a movie perfect. And so anyway, this movie's good. And one last thing that I want to say as like a positive, because I've been so negative this whole time. One positive that I really like was one thing I notice about movies, and I really appreciate and applaud, is when movies toe the line between PG-13 and R. I feel like M. Night Shyamalan does this really well. Like his PG-13 movies feel R-rated, like they feel high stakes. They feel like anything could happen. It's like a scary feeling, and I like that because, like in an R-rated movie, I like that anything can happen. When you watch It, the kid's arm gets bitten off, and he's like a 6-year-old kid. Like that, I like that anything can happen in R-rated movies. And so when a movie's PG-13, I like when the director is like, "What will make it R? Okay, we're gonna just do one tick less than that." What's cool about First Night is, to Justin's point earlier, it doesn't even toe the line of R. Yet you still get those feelings of high stakes. Everybody's in danger. Anything could happen. When Guinevere gets stolen, and she's in that cave with Maligan and his little guy, and he like shreds her dress. Again, like Justin said, it's tasteful. Like nothing's shown, but you feel like she just got ravaged. Like you feel like she just got abused, even though like nothing really happened. But like the way that she's like shuddering, and the way he looks her up and down after the way that he beats up his henchman and blames him for, like, all of that is just so brilliantly like the bad guy was perfect in this movie, in my opinion. the bad guy scenes. So anyway, just wanted to.
I'm just gonna roll with that. My number one criteria in a movie is the bad guy. And I've said this to Alan, and I think it might have trickled down. I view Malagant as one of like top 5, at least top 10 bad guys in all of movie history. Like, it's that good of a character portrayal. When you recognize that whenever the bad guy comes in, people's lives are on the line, worlds shatter on the line, and they steal the show, like Vader entering a room, Malagant, when he enters the room, even when he was there as a friend, the way that all the knights reacted, you saw him in battle once, and he burned the village. But when he walks in and everybody's ready to draw swords, and even he's trying to be friendly, you feel that tension every scene he's in. And so to me, I put a higher weight on a bad guy. That's why I think Masters of the Universe, the way that Skeletor's portrayed in that movie is so brilliant that you can look through all the 80s music and the 80s hairdos and all that stuff because the bad guy is so good at his job. And so I think that's why this pushes it to a perfect movie to me, whereas all the other things, I can see it teetering on an 8 to 10 for a lot, but with his portrayal, it bumps it to a perfect movie to me.
All right, well that brings us to the final vote then. Let's go ahead and take a vote. So I'm tallying Justin as a perfect movie, obviously, because he's the one that selected it as the nomination. I'm going negative. I don't think it's a perfect movie. So we've got 1 for perfect, 1 for not perfect. Drew, perfect or not?
I'm going to shoot it up there because him not using an English accent doesn't disqualify it as a perfect movie to me.
Fair enough. Chase, perfect or not?
Perfect.
Oh, there it is. Callum, it doesn't even matter, but I'm curious to know, perfect or not?
I was going to say imperfect because, in reflection, I think that this story could have been given to any medieval. Like, it didn't have to be King Arthur. It didn't have the purpose of King Arthur and his knights at the Round Table is self-evident throughout history. That dynamic is established, and in this movie it wasn't portrayed. So it could have been some random king and some random prince and some random damsel in distress. I don't think that the characters displayed in this movie needed to be who they were.
Well, I think there's impact though when Arthur goes to I can't even remember, the Grove or whatever, and he has kind of that flashback of Excalibur and kind of just like him becoming king. I think for me that was so memorable to me. I remembered it distinctly as a kid, and then re-remembering just like that little bit of him sharing with Lancelot and just kind of the glowingness of it from, what was it, Avalon, right? In Avalon. So anyway.
And Callum, I want you to recollect, because we said, the Round Table. I want you to think about your answer here, because you're talking about it could be thrown into anything, but there are very distinct differences or very distinct scenes in this movie where Sean Connery takes Camelot, the word Camelot, what it means, Camelot, this, and then we're kind of knocking how he was being very kingly on making decisions, but we got to give him grace on where he wasn't. For example, the 2 times that I can think of off the top of my head is when Malagant is in the room and he's like, I've given her a treaty, and so King Arthur reads the treaty and then he rolls it up and he says, do you accept this treaty, to Guinevere? And she's like, no. And he's like, there's your answer. He didn't make a choice. He didn't make a choice as a king. He wouldn't make a choice. Okay. And then also when he offers the knighthood to Lancelot, and even though everybody's around, he gave him the choice. And Guinevere was like, he's a man of the sword. Let him go. His freedom is what makes Lancelot Lancelot. Let him go. So he had outside sources saying no. And he's like, well, Camelot is a place of freedom. Make your choice. And he looks at him and he says, what do you want to do? And he's like, I want to be a knight. And he's like, then you accept. And he hugs him. Like that was a very Camelot King Arthur moment where he
And
that was, and it was, and if it had any consistency to it, then he would have treated his other knights just the same, but he didn't.
he did, and all of them did brother to brother to him.
Yeah, okay. So, so there was the verbiage there. There was the verbiage there. There was the verbiage. Okay, so first of all, the king was very willing to give people the opportunity to make the decision when he knew fine well that it was going to go along with his plan as well.
Nothing.
Oh, absolutely. He molested this child from the time she was a babe and groomed her to be his wife.
How dare you speak so ill of King Arthur, Callum? Shame on you.
I don't know if I have the guts to publish this video on YouTube. But
so he was able to what was I going to say? So yeah, he was able to say the words at the beginning, but then when it came time to display the actual whether or not this was the attitude of the round table, it wasn't there. Like, I mean, okay, and first of all, the guy becomes a knight because he wins a talent show. Like,
no.
Like, he becomes it was pretty much a talent show.
You missed the whole reason he became a knight. It was because of his chivalry of. Yes, there were some ulterior there were some different motives, but when King Arthur offered Guinevere for the kiss as she promised. He didn't stop that. She said, I will kiss the winner, whoever does the gauntlet. He didn't stop that. He could have, but that's not what Camelot's about. It's about people making their own decisions. And so
yeah, but that wasn't a big thing back then.
Are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
You're a Noctra, dude? You're telling me that's not a big deal?
Absolutely, to give the queen a little wench.
Oh, come off it. Would you let some random knight in the 1300s when syphilis and herpes is going around rampant, would you let him give your wife a kiss on the lips?
Don't correlate this to a Braveheart situation. This was not a Braveheart situation.
Because it was King Arthur and he's good and he's brave and he's true. That's why it worked.
No, if he was brave, and then also there's a big difference between this. Okay, so say, but sire, they're going to notice this and they're going to come from over here. Go, say it to me.
Okay, I know where you're going with this, and also
say it.
Okay,
say it.
All right, I'll play your little reindeer games, but sire, we can't be out in the open.
And then do this, and then do it again.
Okay, but sire, we can't be right out in the open.
Trust me, my knight.
Oh, but there are whispering
ears.
There's listening ears, King Arthur. I'm just going to trust you.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't need to say, hey, don't worry. It's actually a decoy right now, and blah 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 blah. All you got to do is trust me, my knight.
All I'm hearing is
even better. You just go. I've lived through hundreds of battles. I know better. Just trust me on this one.
I'm pretty sure
that is not what he done. And this was the round table where he was not. So he is still the king of Camelot, but he's supposed to be an equal, act as an equal amongst his knights. And he wasn't doing that
for them. Callum, how did that look turn out for them? It
was the right thing. It was the right thing, but he kept on treating his knights as though they had no say throughout the whole thing.
Were they in Camelot?
It's a round table. It's a round table.
He gave one of their choice. He's not even a knight.
I was just going to say, they weren't in Camelot, and on the battlefield, the king is in charge. And that was done more for the movie to not know what's going on than it was a Knights of the Round Table squabble like we just had here.
So that was an example of what I felt as though, like, throughout the whole thing, throughout the whole movie, I think there could have been more to display the conflict between this random nomad becoming it would have elevated the title of knight. It would have elevated that title if there was more pushback from the other knights to say, is this man worthy? Is this man to be trusted? It was very nonchalant, okay, yeah, whatever you say, boss.
I feel like you're judging the entire lifetime of the Round Table based on 2 scenes in the
Yeah,
first
because that's what we were given in the movie.
2 scenes that were crucial to not only storyline plot, but crucial to letting the good guys win, to following history. As Justin said, this is historical, man. This is history that we're portraying here. And
As
so if
Justin said,
can't have
they
the
cared-
foresight or the
as
hindsight
Justin-
of- they probably they don't have time to discuss this, where King Arthur would for sure give them, an open forum. They don't have time for that. No. He has to make some kingly decisions.
Yeah,
Anyways,
that's why
I
I'm
beg you
saying.
to
That's why I'm
reconsider.
saying. That's why I'm saying that this movie could have been displayed in another form, because it was obvious that the round table meant next to nothing
This movie
in
isn't
this movie.
called-
I think. I
You
just
think
think that
King
that's.
Arthur and the Round
I
Table.
think. I think, as I said, when Bo and Chase were gone, if they had more of a conflict there, it would have elevated the title of what it meant to be a knight to King Arthur. Because they
Let's-
didn't do that, it felt as though the title of knight meant less. And that's why, in my view, I think there is a bigger hole in that plot than just shrugging it off as that's my view.
Callum, there's this movie men's right here. Take the chat there. All your gripes. We'll hash this out in a long form. Movie men.
Hey, I
Movie
just
men
gave
right
my
here.
vote. I just gave my vote,
Okay.
and you guys tried to.
Reconsider.
No. I'm saying this is gonna go on for like the rest of the week.
All right.
Okay, until we settle it, but we can't do it here.
Yeah. All right. We got to wrap this up. So, it is a perfect movie. Chase will add it to our perfect movie, Movie Men's Choice Awards.
Are the other guys getting a vote?
Huh?
Are the other guys going to get a vote? Alan and Brownie and
Oh, that's a
Zen?
good question. Do they get a vote if they
We're-
don't participate?
We're at 3. If we get 4, it's automatically in.
Right.
And so
All
I guess we could
51
ask them and pull them later
Let's
on.
ask them.
Yeah.
We'll
Okay,
we'll ask them. We just
We'll-
need 1 out of the 3.
We'll follow up on our next conversation as to officially if First Night has been inducted into our perfect movie category.
Hit us with it, though. What do we
Okay.
got?
Yeah. So that's what I was going to end with is my recommendation. And again, Alan will get his recommendation on at the end of our next discussion. But my first perfect movie, and this is a hard decision, as we all know. Justin kind of articulated that very well in our last video, how hard it is to make these decisions because we only get 2. We do the full rotation and we do a second one. And it's so hard not to just do a layup that I know we all love. I wanted to do one that would cause a discussion like we've had tonight, where there is some back and forth and it's not just everybody agreeing that it's perfect. And I think this is a movie that very few people have actually seen, which makes it even more fun for me because it adds that element of, hey, they haven't seen it. Oh yeah, let's throw it on. Like that's what makes a perfect movie, in my opinion, one of the variables. I know Drew has seen this, but I don't think anybody else has seen it. So the movie that I am nominating as a perfect movie is a little movie probably the other of you guys have never heard of before. I introduced it to Drew, and it is called Life Itself. The movie rocked my world when I first saw it, and it was recommended to me by my wife, Natalie, and we'll discuss it on our next call, but I'll get Chase to upload it. It's called Life Itself, and all I will say, obviously I think it's a perfect movie, but to get you mentally prepared, it's a drama. So, know the genre. It's a drama, so don't go in there thinking that there's going to be sword fighting or explosions or sci-fi or anything like. It's a drama, but please give yourself to the movie, watch it, and come back with some discussion points because I think it's perfect. And it's so under the radar. It's so unknown, which to me adds to its perfection because I love stuff that's less than mainstream. We good? Life Itself. Give it a watch. And don't watch a trailer. Don't read the description. Don't read the summary. Just Chase will upload it and then just watch it. Just raw dog it like we do. And with that, let's go ahead and wrap this discussion. Thanks for joining us, boys. It's been fun. It's been dynamic. It's been contentious. And I think we have ourselves a new perfect movie. So congratulations, Justin. Great pick. Fun movie. And we'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.